So, hello. This is going out to the memberships first, and then it'll be out to the public. This happened after my cancer and before the truck accident. This was in roughly 2013. It was either end of 2012 or the beginning of 2013. What happened was, and the title is correct, I didn't have much money, especially after the trucking accident. I was pretty much broke, didn't remember too much, but I was still pretty good at jewelry. And a friend tried to help me, and he found somebody that wanted to open up a pawn shop directly across from Pawn Stars in Las Vegas, right on the Las Vegas Blvd. There was an empty building, and he asked me, can I set that up? And I says, yeah, I think I could set that up as a jewelry store. And I found a safe from a friend, but it didn't fit through the front door when we got it there. We had to take out the jamb of the door, the whole door, the jamb and everything else, and then rebuild the door. But we got the safe in. That was the first thing. It wasn't easy. We literally had to cut headers and stuff. It was crazy. And then we got jewelry cases, redid the floor, redid the lighting. I had a back room where I had jewelry equipment and had glass counter cases. And so we had set it up. It was called Gold Rush. The owner of it actually was a very wealthy man in Chicago. He had multiple pawn shops. However, he could not get a pawn shop license in Las Vegas. Las Vegas pawn shop license they don't issue new ones. You have to buy one from someone that's closing up or had passed away. At that time, they were running anywhere from $750,000 to over $1 million because you couldn't get any new ones. There was about a half a dozen of them, and that's all there was. Las Vegas was not issuing anymore. Pawn shop means that you can loan on jewelry based on a certain percentage, but you can get and you loan on it, and you tag it, and you hold it in the back. We certainly didn't have enough room there. We didn't have a big enough room to support holding merchandise anyway. So we were only looking at it for a buy-sell store. A buy-sell store allows you to buy-sell pretty much anything. You could buy-sell instruments, CDs, and jewelry, diamonds, gold, silver, and you just have to hold on to it for 30 days. That was the rule. You fill out a form, you take a picture, and you go online, and you submit it. And if there's a problem where something comes up where the owner might have been stolen, you turn over the information on what you got, the driver's license for the person that sold it to you, and their information, and then sometimes you have to negotiate with the owner of the jewelry, or other times you'll say to them, can you pay our costs on it? It just kind of depended on the situation. Sometimes we would just give it, turn it, because we didn't want any problems with the police. So it didn't happen very often, but once in a while it did. You'd mark down what karat gold it is, what size diamond, what type, what color, take a photograph, everything. And again, hold it for 30 days and you're safe. Then after the 30 days, you're allowed to sell it. Now, sometimes people would come after the 30 days, and at that point, we would insist at least if they could prove they had a picture wearing it, if they could prove that the owner had a receipt for it, we would just sell it to them for our costs. We wouldn't try to make a profit because, again, we try to work with everybody. But if it was before the 30 days, we would negotiate. Sometimes just hand it over. That happened once too. Now, so we had a buy-sell shop. I was brought in to be in charge, and after a couple other guys that came in that the owner, Mike, knew from Chicago, and one was a kid. He wasn't getting it. He wasn't sharp. I said, this guy's not working out. He ain't going to get it. He brought in a fellow named Doyle, and Doyle was a little bit older than me. Now, Doyle was... we got really close. I got really close with Doyle. Doyle was a little bit older than me. He was a butcher for 30-plus years. And he had a butcher shop, and he knew Mike from Chicago. They were good friends. They had poker buddies and watched games together and everything else. So he trusted Doyle. He didn't totally trust me. So Doyle was basically looking over my shoulder, making sure there's no theft or whatever I do, make sure it gets approval from Mike first. Now, again, this was around 2013. and I was being paid $1,000 USD a week to run the store. Now, we both had keys, accommodations to the safes, everything else. But Doyle was in charge of getting cash. I had access to a bank, but if it ran over a certain amount, and I'm going to say I think it was either $5,000 or $10,000, Doyle would contact Mike and say, "Hey, Goldfinger has this or that. He wants to buy it. It's more money than we have in the account. We need so much money in the account," and he would transfer money over, and we basically would pay mostly in cash. I don't think we ever bought anything in check. It was all cash and carry, but they did have to have ID. Now I had a deal with the parking attendants across the way that worked at the Pawn Stars. The Pawn Stars was very popular from the History Channel. I don't know. I'm sure you've heard of them. And the Pawn Stars created another mock pawn shop that basically was the same thing as the Pawn Stars retail store, but without it being in the public's eye. It was where they could film and set up cameras and special lighting, and they would have people that came in to the store, the retail store on Vegas Boulevard. If they had something interesting, they would give them a card and tell them to contact the producer, and the producer would pay them money to do a recording. And I don't think they bought the items, but they once in a while Rick would buy it if he was interested in because he liked history. He liked old things, memorabilia. So, but they didn't guarantee they'd buy it, but they'd pay him a lot of money to be on the show and represent the items they're selling. And it was, of course, like all shows, the reality show is that it's not real. Okay. So, but the store had a lineup of people, and it was very popular. People would want to come in there. They think they're going to see Rick or his sidekick, and they were never there at the store. They did have they bought out the building next door, made it into a parking lot because they didn't have enough parking, and across the street had private parking. And so I went to the parking attendants and gave them the card from the store. On the back it said $25 finder's fee. And what I would do is tell them, put your name on the card, and if someone gets turned away and you see they have precious metals or gems, send them our way. Okay? And if we do business with them, I'll give you between $25 and $50. Usually it was $25, but whatever. And we did get several people who would come over, and what happened was the people working in the Pawn Stars were all basically actors. They weren't really there to buy anything, and most of them didn't know how to test jewelry. So several times we had bought some very large purchases because they didn't know what it was, and they didn't really have the money or the funds or the authority to buy it. In one case was a Chinese lady. She stayed in the hotel strip, and she had 23 karat gold, and which is common. And the people working at Pawn Stars had no idea how to test 23 karat because it was so pure, and they just thought it was brass. They didn't know any better. And so the lady came over to me and said, "Hey, they won't buy this across the street. They don't even know it's gold." And I go, "Yeah, I see it's gold. I know it's gold. I could test it." And didn't really have to test. The weight kind of told me it was gold. And the malleability is very soft. And she had about $15,000 worth of gold jewelry, very heavy bracelet and necklace, all in 23 karat. So I said to her, she had come over in a taxi, and I said, "Send the taxi away, and I'll go ahead and take you back to the hotel," which was down the strip. And I says, "But what I need you to do is go with me because we don't have the cash here in the store, and I will pay you between $10,000 and $12,000. But you could come with me. You could hold on the jewelry. We're going to go to a place that'll buy it, and then I'll pay you in cash." And I said, "You could hold on to my driver's license if you want, whatever." She was very nice. So I took her in my car, and I went to a place that I know has cash. They're refiners. There's about 4 gold refiners. And I did not have a shop anymore. I didn't have a gold refiner. So I took it to another gold refiner. They charged 1% to melt it, test it, and assay it real quick, and then pay me cash. And so I think I made $8,000 on the deal. I separated the money out and gave her $12,500, and I think it was just under 20 or just over 20. It was around 20,000. So so I made the store right there. Boom, $7,500, $8,000, I think. And and I drove her back to the hotel, and I drove back to the store. Doyle was there handling the store by himself. It was a quick and easy money. A lot of times people would come in and they want cash right away. We had a guy that came in with a 10-carat diamond. Gorgeous stone, absolutely gorgeous. I wish I could have bought it. It was the nicest stone I've seen. It came with a GIA, which is a Gemological Institute of America certificate, which is also very expensive to get, out of New York, which is the best. And it was a VVS 1, which is one step below flawless, and it was colorless. It was a round brilliant. It was gorgeous. It took the light and reflected it all the way back, and it didn't even look real. I mean, this thing had scintillation, had color, had beauty. It was a beautiful cut. It had a beautiful cut to it in symmetry. Easily wholesale $80,000. Guy said, I want $20,000 for this diamond. Worth $20,000, of course. So Doyle called up Mike and said, hey, we need about $20,000 in the bank. And he's going, what are you buying? I says, I don't really need $20,000. You can send over 15. I know it takes about an hour or so to get the money over. But I told him what it is. I took pictures, sent it to him. He says, are you sure? I says, I know what I'm buying. I spent, I'm a graduate gemologist. I spent 40 years doing jewelry. I says, this thing's easily 80 and on a rush, $60,000 stone, easy. It was set in a platinum mounting, but we didn't really interested in the mounting. But we bought it with the mounting. But luckily, that kind of stuff. The mounting was boring. It wasn't a very interesting mounting. We weren't really interested in the mounting of the value. The value was in the diamond. Mike had somebody else come over that he felt was more knowledgeable than me. Questionable, maybe. He was a diamond cutter out of Israel. He was Israeli. I know him. He was a friend. I had loaned him money. He had helped me out. So he came over. He looked at it. He measured it. He called Mike and says, buy it. And he says, give the guy 20. I says, no. I says, we don't need to give the guy 20. Let me handle the buy, okay? I just needed you to verify. So I came to the counter and I said to the guy, look, we're going to need your driver's license and you want cash, okay? And we're going to take your word that it's not stolen. I says, you have the certificate, but it's obviously not in your name. It wasn't his. He said he inherited it from an aunt and he doesn't need it. I says, well, I'll give you $10,000 cash. And he says, okay, well, I'm going to go somewhere else. I didn't think anybody else would know what it is. I didn't really want him to walk out the door. But I says, okay, well, just let you know, 10,000 cash is right now is a deal, and we'll have it in 1 hour if you want to come back, whatever. But I was pretty sure he was going to come back. He started to walk out the door, and he says, can I wait here till you get the cash? I says, sure, wait here. And so I went and told Doyle, okay, have him send over. Did he send over the money? He says, yeah. I says, go get 10,000. So he had sent over 15 like I had asked, but we only needed 10. We bought it for 10. And then the diamond cutter, which I'll keep anonymous, nice guy, Israeli guy, ended up buying it from Mike for $60,000. And I told Mike, that's a steal, okay? And so they made, $50,000, boom, literally within 3 days. He paid $50,000 and I don't know what he did with it. I wish I could have bought it. I didn't have that kind of money. But it was easily a retail stone worth somewhere in the $300,000 or $400,000 on a retail store if you had the clientele. Because there's a lot of markup in jewelry, typically 300% markup. So, and this is a very rare stone, being colorless and VVS 1, perfect cut. The cut was perfect. The clarity, it was just great. The round cut, round brilliant is the most popular. So, the only thing other maybe a princess cut's pretty good too, but this was just a gorgeous, gorgeous stone. Now, on another instance, a guy came in and had he brought in a couple of money bags of silver, of pure silver, and he said they don't know what it is across the way. They said they won't buy it, and he came over, and he had. They were the shape of animals, like cookie mold, and I'm going, why do they get this shape? And he goes, well, I'll have to explain it to you, but first I want you to make sure it's pure. I says, well, it feels like it's pure. Doyle and I drilled one to make sure there's nothing in the middle, And it was the same all the way through, and we tested it with what's called Schwartz fluid. Schwartz fluid is a mild acid that changes color. In this case, it changes blood red for pure, or kind of off, not blood red, but a reddish and to a brownish, depending if it's less like sterling, or which is only 92.5% silver, or something that's 50% silver will kind of come out brownish red. It came out blood red. It was pure. Even the shavings came out blood red. And we tried 3 or 4 out of the bag. Well, I think it is. He had about 200 ounces worth, but they were all in the shape of cookies. I said, okay, well, I need to get the background from this, and I need to get your driver's license, because I got to understand what it was. He says, well, he was brought into Texas to demo a house. They had wood floors, and when he demoed the wood floor, he came across it under the rafters of the floor in a metal box, and they were 100-ounce bars. I said, do you have a picture of it? So he showed me his phone, and they were indeed Handy and Harmon 100-ounce silver bars, numbered, which I've seen over the years, and they're pure silver. They're rectangular. And I says, and you melted them. He says, well, I was afraid I'd get in trouble for taking them because I was only hired to demo the house, and I found them when I demoed the house. And I says, well, it looks like there's a lot of bars there. Where's the rest of the silver? He goes, you only have a couple 100 ounces here. I says, but I'm looking at 50 bars in this metal container. He says, well, there was another metal container also. I says, okay. He says, well, follow me. I'm like, I'm curious now. We go out the front door, and we go to his truck in the back. He has this beat up old truck. It looked like something from the 60s, rusty truck. And he had a tarp over it, and he had parked behind us. And he threw the tarp over, and the whole back of the truck was filled with these cookie-shaped pure silver figures, okay? They were all tarnished and dirty from a settling torch, because I've melted silver with settling. They get black, and then pure silver tarnishes very easily as well. So I said, oh, my God, you have... And he had bags and bags of them. I'm like, there's like thousands of ounces here. I'm thinking in my head, there's like, I don't know, 30, 40, 50,000 ounces. I said, this is a lot. I says, and what did you want to get paid for? He says, well, I want to get paid cash. I said, that's not a problem. I said, but this is a lot of money. I says, I don't know if we can give you cash all at once, but, we're going to have to discount it by at least 25%. And he says, well, let's see how much the 2 bags I brought in was. Well, the 2 bags he brought in was several $1,000s, okay? And silver back then was running around 15 to 18, I think about $18 an ounce for pure silver. And so he had $3,600 worth of silver or more, maybe 4,000. It was a little over 200 ounces. And with that, I says, we'll give you $3,000 cash for these 2 bags, just 2 bags. Now, he had 100 bags in the back of his truck. I'm going like, oh, my God, it's going to take some money. So Doyle's calling up Mike, because Doyle was a butcher. He never dealt with large amounts of money. Probably the biggest money he ever handled was a $100 bill. And I'm used to handling large amounts of money because I had bought diamonds and gold, and I'd handle $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 buys. Not every day, but it's happened multiple times. So I said, Doyle, you better call him. He needs to send about 100,000 over the next couple days. And Mike's hitting the roof. Mike says, I want to talk to Goldfinger. And I'm talking to Mike. I go, Mike, you're going to make between 25 to 50% on your money. Okay, this guy has a ton of silver, and I'm going to probably cut it back a little bit. So I kind of was, I'm going to say I was a goner. If I wasn't a good person back then, but this is again before the truck accident. So I got to tell you, a truck accident happened in 2016, and this is back in 2013. I was a goner. So I said to the guy, we're going to weigh it on a pound scale. I had a 50-pound pound scale, and I showed him that it's 12 troy ounces to the pound, average point pound. 12 troy ounces to the troy pound, technically, okay? But there's 14.583 troy ounces to an average point pound. So for every pound, I made another 2.5 ounces, okay? And then I'm paying him 70%, 75%. And then I sometimes rounded it off a little bit as well. So we were making about 35% profit. And I paid them over a 3-day period. We literally had to unload. We undid the back door. We had a back door to the shop, and we unloaded all of the silver into the back of the shop. And be honest with you, I don't think we weighed all the silver. We paid them a large amount of money. I don't remember. It was way over $50,000 for all his silver cash, and he had to come back the next day as well because we couldn't finish in just a few hours. We were closing in a few hours, so I said just come back the next day, and I think we took advantage of that too. In any case, he was happy because he found it, so he ended up with around $50,000-$60,000. We ended up with about $100,000 in silver, and sold it. So I always made more than $1,000 a week. Sometimes big money, like the 10-carat diamond or the gold bracelet, and sometimes it was just everyday stuff. But typically we only paid 50 cents on the dollar when a person brought in a ring or a chain. It wasn't very competitive, and we tell them how much we pay. We don't say how much we pay per gram or pennyweight. We just say, hey, this is worth $200. Maybe it's worth $800, but this is $200. They either take it or leave it. And then sometimes they come back, well, would you give me $300? Yeah, we'll give you $300. Still worth $800. So I'm going to tell you right now, pawn shop owners, buy-sell stores, they're gonoffs. That's the Jewish word, gonoff, okay? We weren't good. We stole it. And typically a jewelry store will charge you high, over 300% profit on most jewelry, especially it kept getting thinner and thinner, or hollow chains, and they charge you like it's solid. It's just a money-making business. Anyway, so we had several deals like that, and we had a lot of people that would come in and sell their jewelry, and gold had gone up. Maybe they paid $100 for an item, but now it's worth $250 melt. So if we gave them more than what they paid for it, if we gave them $150 and it's worth $250 melt, they're thrilled to death. They only paid $100 for it. Now they weren't even wearing it. It's all worn out and tangled, or if it's like a herringbone chain, it's all twisted and bent. But we're just looking at it for the gold value. And we were melting gold, quite a bit of gold every week. So we're busy making money. Sometimes other things came in besides diamonds or jewelry or rubies or emerald. A beautiful emerald came in one time. But sometimes old antique gambling machines would come in, like a roulette wheel from the 30s, all in wood that needed to be refinished. And we refinished that one. I bought that one for $300 and redid it, had a carpenter redo it all with new paint, polished the brass, redid the wood. It was gorgeous when it was done. We sold it for $2,000. It only cost me $500 to fix it up, so I only had $800 into it. We also had one-armed bandits from the way back when, where you put in a nickel, mostly a nickel, or no dime, maybe quarter, nickel or quarter machines, roll-a-tops. Any case, we were busy. We're making money. We had alarm systems. We had video cameras. Video cameras were in the main floor on opposite corners in the ceiling, pointing down, especially over where the register was in the testing. There was another video camera in the back room where I would take items to be tested. We also bought watches, so we'd buy Rolexes, Universal Genève, Patek Philippe, and really nice watches too. We'd get some watches in the box, beautiful watches that like Seiko's and other brands that were really nice, even Disney Mickey Mouse watches, and we sell those and make usually double our money. A guy came in one day, and he's looking at the watches, and he's trying on different watches. And then another guy came in maybe 15 minutes later. And we didn't know they were working together. And they pulled guns on Doyle and myself. Caught us by surprise. Though we did have a gun, we didn't have a chance to get it, which was hidden underneath under the case in a drawer. You'd have to open it wasn't in a good, easy place to grab, and we didn't have time. We had guns pointed at us, so we're holding up our hands, and they're saying, turn around, and they're tying us up, and they're putting, they took us to the back room where we had a bunch of the money bags from the silver. Now, the silver had long been gone, but there's lots of jewelry in the store, and the safe was unlocked. They put money bags over us, led us to the bathroom, and put us down in the bathroom area. Just before the bathroom, it was like a little storage for like towels or workshop where we cleaned jewelry. We had ultrasonic cleaning and stuff, but it wasn't actually the bathroom. They laid us down. It was kind of dark. They put us down on the floor and said, "Stay here and be quiet, okay?" And Doyle's saying, "What are we going to do?" I says, "Nothing." I says, "I don't want. It's not my merchandise. I'm not going to die for it. It's somebody else's merchandise. It's Mike's. We're being robbed. We're being robbed. There's nothing we could do. You're going to go up there and get shot? I'm not." And then we hear him breaking the cases. Could hear the glass breaking. We could hear him mumbling and talking. And then as it got closer, and after about maybe 15 minutes, and we're shaking, I'm starting to get really nervous. I'm shaking. Doyle's shaking. We're worried because now they're talking about what are they going to do with us, and they've seen our face. Now, I said to the guy, and I said to the guy, "Listen, I have kids. I have family. We both have family. We have kids. It's not our merchandise. Just take it and go." I says, "We don't know anything. We'll just say you wore masks." I didn't know if they had masks or not. Again, I had a bag over my head, but just don't hurt us. We're not going to hurt you. Just take it and go. Well, one of the guys lifted the bars we had. We had bars across the back door, 2 steel bars that would they would latch into the wall on either side with like a U bracket, and the only way to open that door was to take the 2 bars out. So we heard the bars come out for the door, and the guy's unlocking the door. We could hear him unlock it, and when he opened the door, he set off the alarm. Okay, at this point, it's attracting attention. They got nervous, so that guy ran out the door and said, "Shoot him." Okay. I'm going, please don't do that. Please, we don't know what you're, don't do anything. And I heard, and I'm shaking at this point. I haven't never been involved with a gun, but I heard 2 shots go off, and I felt Doyle slump on me, and I blacked out. I don't remember anything after that. Now, I figured I'm dead too because Doyle slumped all over me, and I knew he had died, and I figured I'm next, and I just blacked out. I was going into shock as best I could say. So I don't know how much time passed by. They had locked the front door because they had broken in. Somebody had broken the glass. Somebody had called the cops. I heard voices. I started to come out of it, and I started to move, and a detective said, "One of them's alive. Call an ambulance. Get an ambulance here right away. One of them's alive." Now, they didn't want to. They were taking pictures. They didn't want to touch anything, and I still have a bag in my hand. I said, "Can you take this bag off me, please?" And when he took the bag off, I saw blood all over my shirt, all over my pants, all over the puddle on the floor, and then I saw a detective wearing a rubber glove, and I passed out again. I just literally blacked out. The next time I woke up, I was in a hospital, and they said, I said, "Am I shot?" They said, "No, you're okay. You're in shock, and you just need to stay here for a little bit while we get your blood pressure and everything back to normal, and we're just going to stay here for observation overnight." The next day, they said I was okay to go. Again, I said, "Doyle, what happened to Doyle?" And they said, "You'll have to talk to the detectives. The nurses or the doctors won't say anything." But they did tell me he did get shot in the head. And I go, "Well, why wasn't I shot in the head? Well, why? Where was all that blood?" They said, "Well, that was his blood all over you." And I said, "Wow." I said, "Well, I don't understand. Why did they let me live?" And they said, "Well, they didn't, and we're going to need you to come down to the station." So they took me down to the station, and they explained to me, "This is going to be a little bit hard for you to watch, but we have the videotape." They had gotten it from Mike because it went up to a satellite, and then he had sent it to them. And I watched it, and it was very upsetting because I saw him shoot Doyle, and you can see the gun reverberate. I don't know what you'd call it, like backfire, and you see it jump and you see smoke and all that. And then they pointed at me and she fired twice, and the gun did not go off. And I'm going, I said, oh my God, the gun, I'm thinking this, the gun jammed. I says, because then the guy threw it down and ran out the back door. So they says, well, we need to explain to you one more thing. So we recovered the gun, and the detectives have fired it into water, and it fires just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I says, what do you mean there's nothing wrong with it? I says, it jammed. He says, well, we don't know what happened, but you can see in the video you did not get shot, obviously. The gun did not go off. Doyle was shot, and it went off twice, and then it didn't go off for you. And the next time it was fired in our lab in water, and it fired just fine. So we can't explain it. Okay, we don't know what happened. But for some reason it didn't go off. It's weird. I'm still very upset about Doyle because Doyle was a good friend. He was sent back to Chicago for burial with his family. Needless to say, I couldn't stay in the store. I couldn't go back to the store. I remember seeing a puddle of blood. I had nightmares from it for a long time, so I couldn't deal with the store, and I couldn't go back. And that was pretty much the end of jewelry for me. So that's why I ended up going into trucking a little bit later, like a year or so later, a couple of years later. But I couldn't deal with jewelry in a retail store after that, and I never did go back. And Mike had somebody else go in there, but it closed within a year. They didn't know how to. Mike contacted me and says, look, I'll pay you. Come back in. And I says, I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it. It's just, that was just too monumentous for me to, I can't. I see Doyle. I see blood. I feel like every day I'm going to die. I said, that was pretty much the end of jewelry for me from that point on. So I had to change my field altogether. And so I ended up learning how to go, taking classes on trucking and driving as a trucker. And the two guys that robbed us were African American. You could not see their face except for when they first came in, but they were wearing hoods. They didn't look directly at the cameras. They never caught them. They never recovered any of the jewelry. And something I have to deal with for a while. But God bless Doyle. You guys take care. Bye.